How Diet Affects Metabolism by Brittany McClanahan. Level Elementary. During the school day, you know how you get really tired class after class throughout the day. Then it's time for lunch and recess. Then you have much more energy than you did before. Well, this is because food is the source of energy for your body. So, when you eat, that is like when you have to put batteries in a toy for it to work. If you don't put batteries in it, then it's not going to light up or make any noise. You also need energy to be able to not only move around, but make your heart beat and allow you to breathe. How your body does this is it takes the food you ate and it breaks it down into tiny pieces. Then your cells use the tiny pieces to be able to keep you healthy. It can also use the tiny pieces like Legos. Legos are made up of bricks. These bricks can be used to make tons of things. You can build a castle, but then later you decide you don't want a castle anymore and you want a dinosaur instead. You can use the same Lego pieces from the castle to build a dinosaur. Your body does this with the stuff in your food. They break them apart to make something new and break that apart to make whatever else it needs over and over and over again. This is what your metabolism is. It is how your body uses food to create energy. Though, not all foods are created equal. There are many types of food that are good for different things. A calorie is how we measure how much energy is in food. Two foods can have the same amount of calories or energy, but have very different effects on the body, depending on what other things are in the food. For example, all of these fruits have 100 calories, but you can only have one apple, or you can have 128 blueberries, but they have the same amount of energy. These are both fruits, so they have pretty similar effects on your body. But what about if you had 100 calories of blueberries compared to 100 calories of ice cream? Your body is getting very different building blocks from the ice cream than the fruit. That is one of the reasons that your mom or dad prefers you to eat blueberries over ice cream. The blueberries have much more of the building blocks your body needs in order to keep you healthy. Level High School. Did you know the food you eat becomes energy? You literally are what you eat. These groups include protein, fat, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids. These are the raw materials needed for us to live and go about our daily lives. You can get these from a variety of foods. It is pretty common knowledge that meat is a good source of protein, but there are many plants that also have high protein. For example, seeds, soy, and dark greens can all be great sources of protein. Fat is an important part of a diet as well. Avocados are a great source of healthy fats. Fats, or lipids, are used to make up cell membranes in your cells. Carbohydrates are also very important because they are what supply energy to your cells and muscles. Carbohydrates is just a fancy name for chains of sugars. They get broken down into smaller sugars such as glucose, fructose, and galactose. Glucose is what is used to make ATP. ATP is the main source of energy for your cells. Nucleic acids are also very important to include in a diet because they are what make up your DNA and RNA. These can be found in meat, lentils, milk, and mushrooms. All of these are needed for a healthy diet because they are essential materials needed to make your body function. The question of how your body does this is one of the questions I hope to answer for you. So, how does food change into energy and these raw materials that are essential for life? It does this with two types of reactions. The first being anabolic reactions. This reassembles the small pieces to make bigger, more complex products. And the second is catabolic reactions. This breaks down the pieces of food. Those two types of reactions make up your metabolism. Anabolism makes things and uses energy. Monosaccharides and fatty amino acids make more complex polymers. For example, carbs, fat, and proteins are things that the cells really need to fulfill various bodily functions. Catabolism, the breakdown of large molecules, and in doing so, breaking the bonds that release energy. The energy released allows you to do many things like stay warm and move. This is the fuel for your cells, so they can perform all of the various functions that they need to do to keep you healthy. Nutrients are what your body are consistently breaking apart and building back together. This happens over and over and over again. These nutrients are water, vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, lipids, also known as fats, and proteins. These nutrients are used to maintain, build, and make repairs in your body. Diet is also a factor that is important to consider. Diet is the food that a person habitually eats. What I am investigating is whether various diets can have an influence on the metabolism. In the previous slide, we saw the various building blocks in your body, your body needs to function. So, depending on the various eating habits, you would have very different amounts of those building blocks that could either enhance or hinder your body's ability to fulfill these functions through metabolism. So, how does diet affect metabolism? Well, I looked into two types of extreme diets to see how metabolism is affected. The first was the ketogenic diet. The other was fasting. The keto diet had negative effects on metabolism because it was so low in carbohydrates that it did not have enough glucose in the diet for the cells to turn into energy. Fasting had surprising results that your body is able to run on different chemicals when glucose levels are depleted, but they also saw their metabolism rate greatly decrease. That is a bit about how metabolism works and how your diet affects metabolism. Level peer. This is a quick review of metabolism for a refresher, then we will get into some interesting research with metabolism. A key part of metabolism is cellular respiration. I know that I remember learning about cellular respiration for the first time in high school and thinking, wow, all that for only 38 ATP. Wow. Anyway, the definition of metabolism is a series of reactions that sustain life. Metabolism, we all know, is very complex, as seen in the image. That is just a whole lot of lines going all over the place. Let's make it a little more simple. The basics of metabolism are two types of reactions. One is anabolism, Anabolism puts things together to make more complex structures and uses energy, while the second type of reaction is catabolism. Catabolism breaks down large and complex structures to be able to have the building blocks available. Also, the breaking of these bonds release energy that can then be used by the cells. Let's get into cellular respiration. I know we all know this stuff at this point, but it's important to talk about its role in metabolism. This is where the reactions for metabolism occur. As I mentioned before, this produces typically around 38 ATP. How does it do this? We all know just how important glucose is for our bodies. We start with glucose and 6 oxygen molecules, and we get 6 water molecules and ATP and 6 carbon dioxides out. In our metabolism lab, we used mealworms to see how different stresses affected their metabolism by measuring their respiration. We were able to do this because we have to put 6 oxygen molecules in to get 6 carbon dioxide molecules out. So, how does your body use food to create energy for various bodily functions? Well, it uses 2 types of reactions. The first being anabolic reactions that reassembles the small pieces to make bigger, more complex products. The second is catabolic reactions that break down the complex structures into more simple structures. These 2 types of reactions make up metabolism. Now let's take a bit of a deeper dive into these 2 reactions. Anabolism makes complex structures from less complex structures. This process requires energy to occur. This image clearly demonstrates the process. The tiny dots can represent a variety of molecules with some ATP and can create a complex molecule structure. We can apply this to something like monosaccharides. These can be put together in long chains to create carbohydrates. In other words, a more complex sugar. Catabolic reactions do the opposite of anabolic reactions. They break down the large structures to allow new structures to be made. This process releases energy with the breaking of these bonds. This image clearly shows this process. We can use the same example from the previous slide, but in reverse. You would start with a carbohydrate, and after you would have monosaccharides and ATP. Knowing all that, I wanted to investigate how/if various diets affect metabolism. It would make sense that if your body is lacking various nutrients that it needs, that it may not function at its full potential or have harmful effects. I have researched a variety of diets and would like to share what I have found with you. It seems that there is always some new fad diet that is supposed to be revolutionary. I wanted to know how these diets can affect our metabolism, and are they good or bad for us? Here are a couple that I investigated. First, we will look at the ketogenic diet. Then, we will look at how fasting affects metabolism. The ketogenic diet was made to help treat epilepsy. It helps to reduce the number of seizures a person has. The ketogenic diet is high in protein, high in fat, and low in carbohydrates. In recent years, this diet has become trendy, and people who do not have epilepsy have adopted the diet. This specific diet can have harmful effects on metabolism of the average person. A study found that it can cause a disruption of glutamatergic synaptic transmission, inhibition of glycolysis, and activation of ATP-sensitive potassium channels. As you all know, glycolysis is one of the main processes in cellular respiration. The inability to create ATP in glycolysis makes the body use alternative energy sources. This is due to your body not having enough glucose. This is not allowing your body to function at its full potential, which could be harmful over long periods of time. Fasting. Fasting is when you don't eat for various periods of time. In this study, they investigated how people that are obese reacted to fasting for weight loss. They found a paradox, though. These participants were able to fast for periods of time that are longer than their carbohydrate and protein storages would be able to supply. So, what happened? How was this able to occur? Well, their bodies were using beta-hydrobutyrate and acetoacetate to replace glucose as fuel for the brain. It is also important to add that these researchers also found that these participants had a low respiratory quotient. They were unable to properly do cellular respiration, therefore metabolism, because of the lack of glucose consumption. These diets suggest that fad diets are not a good decision for weight loss because they hinder your body's ability to do metabolism. It is essential that we give our body the nutrients required to make energy. This is because we need enough ATP to fulfill the many functions our bodies do to keep us alive and healthy.